Hello and welcome. I'm Brian Beveridge. I'm the co-director of the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. A few of you know me. Not everyone does. My co-director, Margaret Gordon, is just getting connected here. Our organization was asked by Oakland Department of Transportation to help to host and facilitate a series of meetings about the upcoming, and by upcoming I mean over the coming year probably or more, upgrades and changes to the design of Grand Avenue in our part of the neighborhood. The project actually runs from Mandela Parkway all the way to MacArthur Boulevard, but the city has divided it in, we think appropriately, into three neighborhoods, and is talking about the issues over in the Grand Lake area, the downtown area, and the West Oakland section between San Pablo Avenue and Mandela Parkway. So the goal here was just to, as an introduction to what we're doing, so you all feel oriented to the kinds of questions you might ask and what you think is happening. The goal here was to introduce and orient us all to a process that's going to take place over the coming months and probably into next year. We're not here to design Grand Avenue. We're here to learn how we will have an opportunity to participate in the coming months. So we appreciate you all being here, and we're going to let's back up to housekeeping. I think we have a slide that was just housekeeping issues. So we'll just say here's where we're at. If there's anyone who's not familiar with the Zoom logistics at this moment, please speak up, but we will at times need to raise our hands to speak because there's more than a dozen of us here. We'll ask you to mute and unmute. If you don't remember to mute yourselves again after you speak, we'll probably do it for you. You can put questions in the chat function and they will be captured. Whether we're able to address them today, maybe a question, but you can, excuse me, you can certainly put them in the chat function and the city will capture those questions. If you represent a group that you'd like to state your affiliation with, please add it to your name in your speaker box. The meeting will be recorded. If you don't want to be seen on camera, you can turn off your camera. If you don't want to be heard on the recording, you can turn off your microphone and put your questions in the chat, and they'll be answered either in the course of the meeting or later on by staff. If you're having problems with technology, check in, send an email to Tyler. He works with OakDOT, and he will be monitoring that during the meeting. We'll try to put terms, certainly speak up if someone starts using a bunch of terms that you're not familiar with, a bunch of alphabet soup that, you know, we all fall into in our particular professions. You can speak up, you can ask in the chat for a definition, and we will have or develop a glossary of terms that we can share with you. One other thing about the chat, really try, sometimes in these meetings, you've probably been in meetings where people start running a separate meeting in chat. Somebody says, what about this thing? And somebody else answers that, and somebody else responds to their answer, and pretty soon there's two different meetings. We really want to get all your ideas into the open and have a chance to hear them. And so try to, if you have a question you'd like to tee up for us, put it in the chat and Amy will be watching that. If you are, just try not to get into a running dialogue in the chat because no one else is going to see that, and we're not going to get the benefit of your brilliance if it's all over there, right? So I think those are mostly it. Annie will post these as people trickle in. She'll post these in the chat room, and we'll hope that people read them. So let's move on. Yeah, we want to find out, and I'm going to ask Miss Margaret to do this piece, just to find out who's in the room. Do we know how many people we have at this moment? Team?
19.
19? It's almost unwieldy to go around and ask everybody what they're at. What we do a lot of times is just see who's affiliated to what. So I want to introduce Miss Margaret Gordon, for those of you who don't know her, and have her run this piece of the meeting where we see who's in the room. So Miss Margaret, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Brian. First of all, much appreciation for people who want to be part of this process for tonight. I'm asking if you are a resident of West Oakland, please put your hand up, raise your hand. If you're from the business community, raise your hand. If you come from an organization, please raise your hand. Are you affiliated with an organization, business or community organization? Raise your hand. Do you drive a car? Raise your hand. Do you see this project is very viable to the area of West Oakland where you live? I see Sherry says she does not have the ability to raise her hand, so can you put that in the chat? Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Margaret. Some of you, if you're on the phone, you may not be ready, you probably can't raise your hand. But we won't leave you out. We just really wanted to get a sense of who's in the room. I think we've got a mix of business. The interesting thing about our section of Grand Avenue is you start over at San Pablo Avenue and you have a mix of residential and business and nonprofit service organizations. You move a few blocks, you've got a growing retail sector there with a gas station and a little shopping mall and some other things that are going on. As we continue right in that area, we've got a brand new housing project with hundreds of units, I guess, and a lot of new people that will be there and on the street and using Grand Avenue. When we get over to the Adeline Street corridor, we have a whole small business, sort of boutique business in the manufacturing section there, with specialty foods and furniture manufacturing and a variety of other things. And then we go just another block or two, and we really have more heavy industry with a very significant trucking and logistics sector and a variety of other industrial businesses. So we have a lot of interests here in using this street. And so this is really about how we look at continuing to share that street appropriately as we add some new uses. The vision is that parts of the street don't have any, as you'll hear later, parts of the street don't even have sidewalks. Some parts of it are pretty rough physically and the infrastructure. There's a desire to add bike lanes, as is the case all over the city, to improve pedestrian improvements. There will be other agencies with vested interests here, like AC Transit, and potentially dedicated bike lane or dedicated bus lanes. So there's a lot of interests. And before we get into fighting over the interests, we want to get everybody on the same page and and make this into, as much as possible, a collaborative thought process over the coming months. So you can move on to the next slide. I've probably covered some of it. These are some of the things we're looking at, what we're here for. It's to begin to wrap our heads around this change. It's important to understand that we're not here to design the change. That's a few months down the road. We will have a series of focus groups targeting various groups here in the coming next 2 months. And another meeting like this one that will be more about what's the perspective that's evolving from all of you. I think I touched on the scope of the design area, Mandela Parkway to San Pablo Avenue. We're particularly interested in the local folks, businesses and residents who use Grand Avenue daily. You know, with the recognition that it's a throughway across the city, but we're really concerned about how it's used by local businesses and residents. Some of the constraints are that there are a half dozen other agencies that already have some ideas about what should happen on Grand Avenue, whether it's MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, or it's AC Transit. Caltrans probably has some thoughts on what happens at, you know, when you go past Mandela Parkway. And so the key thing here is that our community comes together and establishes a voice in this process and establishes a way to have influence over the outcome. I would probably leave the potential for end results to OCDOT staff. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in at this moment as we lay the groundwork and say what that is. Hank or anybody want to tee that up?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, thanks, Brian. I will save that for the presentation that will follow shortly.
Okay, so we're going to have a presentation from OCDOT, and they'll give us, what they're going to give us is the background on what they've been doing. This isn't the first thing they've done, but refreshingly, they have come to us very early in their process and brought us in to help guide where they head with this thing. This isn't a project where they've already kind of laid out what they want to achieve and they're asking us for input. They're really asking us to influence the process that they're developing. I think that's all I need to say without belaboring the points. Just quickly, are there any just sort of clarification questions right now? Not deep into it, but anything that people don't understand about where we're headed so far? Feel free to just unmic yourself.
Can you talk about the timeline for what this project is?
Yeah, I think you'll see that in this brief set of slides that OCDOT's about to present. Now, let's hold that question for about 15 minutes, and then if you don't know the answer, then we'll make them tell you. All right, is that all right?
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, thanks. So I'm going to hand it off to Hank and Tyler, and I think might be the answer to your question right here. So take it away, Hank.
Thanks, Brian. Before I let you off the hook, how about we just go around the room, maybe the team, the rest of the room or meeting room already introduced themselves and raised their hand, but let's introduce the core project team.
I apologize. Yes, I was going to do that. Annie, I think we chose you to go first.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Annie Ledbury with the East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation. We develop and manage affordable housing around Oakland. And we also do community development. So my work is around creative community development and reaching residents in unusual and artistic ways, thinking about resident leadership. And we'll get to our piece of this at the end, but yeah, happy to be collaborating with these really great folks on the line.
And Walter?
Hello, everyone. My name is Walter with the Black Film Guild. We're a nonprofit in Oakland designed to train individuals on the technical aspects of filmmaking. And with this project, we're going to be assisting with the artistic portion and the youth outreach portion of the project. And we'll probably go into a little bit further about what that looks like in the presentation.
Great. And I think we're back to you, Hank.
How about Jonathan real quick? If Jonathan's still on the line.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Jonathan. Jonathan, you there?
All good. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Piper. I was actually brought onto the project by Walter. We met through other mediums, but I'm part of the community. I love advocating for the community and building relationships and networking. So I'm just here to support with bringing on like the youth voice, youth perspective, and helping to find younger artistic people who can really bring this to life and showcase how beautiful the city is, how beautiful this part of the town is, and narrate the story.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Annie. My name is Hank Fan. I'm a transportation planner with the City of Oakland Department of Transportation. I've had a chance to meet or speak with a few of you over time, whether it's this project or maybe a different project. I recognize Bill, Joe. We've spoken in the past, but my capacity in this project is project manager. I was fortunate enough to write and actually receive this grant from Caltrans about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and so now I'm managing this project. It's a planning process. You know, it's not a project where ODOT is going to build, you know, what's going to go in the ground or what you see here will go in the ground. It's more of a process, a planning process, which is very important for the community to be involved in. And that is my role. And I'm joined by Tyler. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, folks. My name is Tyler Brown. I'm a management intern with ODOT. So I've been with ODOT for the last year. Just finished my planning degree at Berkeley and supporting Hank and the other wonderful folks on this project. Thanks for being here.
All right, I appreciate you all going around saying hi. We'll jump right into it. The background of the project, like Brian said, it actually spans from Mandela Parkway all the way to MacArthur Boulevard. And I know you all are probably aware of other projects and aspects, just like Brian said, other agencies have, you know, work and efforts in this area as well. But we are focusing extra engagement in the West Oakland portion. And so that is just between Mandela and San Pablo, and that's why you all are here today. The process is, the engagement process is split up in 3 separate sections. Phase 1, which is listening to ideas and needs, just visioning, and that's happening right now. And phase 2 is collaborating on potential design concept, which is what the funder, Caltrans, the state, is looking for in this grant. And obviously that's not like final, like I said, it's not a project. They just give us money to work with communities to conceptualize. And then phase 3 is just refining, so going back just to see if we captured the community vision. AC Transit is also a partner. They went in on this grant with us, and so we don't have actually a representation from AC Transit tonight, but they're with us along the way. It's a major corridor for them. And then our technical consultant are groups Alta Design, and then also Nelson Nygaard, who's not featured here on this slide. Tyler, next slide, please. Thank you. So we understand there's a long and robust history on this corridor, but also in West Oakland in general. So what you see on the slide here are just several, more recent regional and local planning efforts that involve Grand Ave or just West Oakland as a whole. And so we actually have a downloadable document on our website link above where you can actually find a complete list of other plans that has happened before this one. So from all of these plans in the past, I'm sure you all have been around and you all have been hopefully part of some of these previous planning processes. But you know, some of the goals of the regional plans include things like improving public transit reliability through Grand, obviously providing zero emission buses through West Oakland community as a whole, and AC Transit, they're making a lot of headway and progress on that through their clean corridors effort. Maintaining freight access through, since Grand Ave is a truck route, especially where we're talking between Mandela and San Pablo's is for sure a truck route. But however, you know, minimizing the truck's impact to the local community that live there, reducing emissions as a whole with all port related activities. And similarly, in some of the local plans, we see some similar aspect as well, like serving the transportation needs of people that already live there in West Oakland, improving safety and comfort of those that travel by walking, by biking or any other modes, and then improving more local public transit service is something that's been brought up, and then connectivity to local destinations through those public transit as well, and not just making it a throughput. And then improving access to regional transportation like BART, that's also pretty important in a standpoint of local goals, and also minimizing truck impacts and improving air quality in the local community. And so all of these recommendations, regional, local efforts, is basically how the Grand Ave plan came to be. And subsequently, the recommendations and things that we come up in this planning process will guide what and how the city of Oakland seeks this project, seeks this funding and construction later on down the road in the future. So I'll pass it on to my colleague Tyler to dive a little bit more into where we are with this plan right now.
Thanks, Hank. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of talk about existing conditions of the corridor, so we're all kind of together on the same page. You know, what's going on right now, what's some of the data we uncovered about some of the traffic data and some of the disparities as well. So really, as Hank mentioned and Brian mentioned, you know, we're focusing on West Oakland tonight, but there's 3 sections of the full corridor, and a theme that we'll see in the next few minutes is how these sections really are, in many ways, a story of 3 different neighborhoods and 3 different, just 3 different sort of transportation systems within each section. So we have West Oakland from Mandela to San Pablo Avenue. That's how we're defining it. Downtown is San Pablo to Harrison, and then Harrison to MacArthur is the Adams Point section. And, you know, West Oakland really is the widest road with 3 travel lanes in each direction for cars, the furthest distance between intersections. Vehicular traffic really right now is prioritized. Not much bicycle facilities in the western part of the segment. We'll go into these areas a little deeper. And downtown, the character of the street transforms. It slows down. There's more signals at intersections. It becomes a little denser with the housing and the businesses. And as we've kind of looked at some various maps, there's community disparities within West Oakland to downtown at Adams Point. This is the MTC Communities of Concern map, which basically tracks various demographic disparities and focuses on which census tracts, you know, should receive the most investment. This is the CalEnviroscreen map, which highlights environmental pollution exposure, as well as overlays that with some demographic analysis to see who's the most exposed and the most potential impact by this environmental pollution. So you can see the West Oakland is in the highest percentile, which means they're the most exposed to pollution. you've got this healthy places index, which I'll be honest, I don't actually know the methodology behind it, but you can see that the West Oakland portion scores the lowest in the index versus especially the Adams Point section. So now I'm going to go into the different modes, the different ways that people move around, and kind of take a slightly closer look. The current conditions of walking, Brian mentioned this earlier. You can see this map, which is a scientific inventory, sidewalk inventory, and there's major gaps in the sidewalk network. We also have a table that shows the yield rates, which is essentially when drivers basically defer to pedestrians at an intersection. And you can see the Linden intersection with Grand Avenue, which is the West Oakland one, has only 19% yield rate as compared to the eastern part of the corridor. So that really means that, you know, it's another signal that pedestrian safety is not high in the western portion. Transit is pretty straightforward. There's 3 lines that directly serve Grand Avenue right now, the 12, the NL, and the overnight 805. But there's also a lot of bus routes that intersect with Grand Ave, and of course are important. Another disparity, there's 36 bus stops along the entire corridor, but all of the shelters are in Adams Point except for one shelter, which is downtown bus shelter. And so there's no bus shelters currently in the West Oakland portion. A couple things that folks have identified from other agencies, Brian alluded to that. AC Transit has identified Grand as a site potentially for what's called BRT, bus rapid transit style improvements. So that just means various improvements that increase the reliability of the bus system. That sometimes involves prepayment systems. Sometimes that means raising the bus stand so that folks in wheelchairs can slide right on without having to unfurl. And MacArthur Grand has been identified as the city's first truly clean corridor, which I think Hank mentioned, meaning it's going to be the first corridor with 100% zero emissions vehicles. The goal right now is 2032. So for biking, and we kind of lump, you know, those scooters in with biking and other what's called micro mobility, small ways to get around. You can see that in especially the furthest west part of the corridor is high stress, and so this is a map of the level of stress for people who are biking, and that just means, do you feel safe or not? And we kind of have, there's a whole methodology of, you know, which types of bike lanes feel safe for people and are safe for bikers and people who are scooting. And so you can see the furthest most West Oakland portion is high stress. But in general, all of the corridor could certainly use some improvement in bikeway safety. Now, as far as cars, you can see this is a collision report, and if anyone's interested in digging deeper, we can send out some of this this data. There's a significant number of crashes on Grand Ave, particularly in West Oakland. West Oakland has the highest, the fastest traffic with an average of 30 miles per hour most of the day, whereas downtown is closer to 15 miles per hour. We did a traffic analysis, and basically most of the intersections have what's called acceptable queuing, which means that cars don't get too backed up at intersections, which is a good thing. Trucking, Hank alluded to the trucking. Truck management is a major part of West Oakland and Grand Ave. You can see there's a significant number of different truck management plans or elements of the truck management plan underway. You can see that, you know, this is a analysis of vehicle types at Grand Ave and Mandela, so on the western portion, and we've got you know, a significant part of, I think something, gonna have to do math in my head real quick. About like 12% of all of the vehicles at the intersection are box trucks, semi trucks, or pickup trucks. Actually, a little more than that. And changes, you know, for the truck route will involve a range of things. I think Hank maybe can give an update on the truck management plan, but you know, potentially special infrastructure to support sustainability goals of the port, potentially different truck signage, training for you know, OPDOT employees about sort of truck management and enforcement, things like that. Okay, I think that's back to Hank.
Cool. Thanks, Tyler, for the background info. Yeah, with the truck management plan, the city adopted it about a year ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but 1 year in, I think a few things have changed. They have a separate website, and there were a few things changed, and I think there was a memo that was put out more recently about that. But they've basically done 3 to 4 months of community engagement on some of the changes. And it seems like the changes were minor from the original truck management plan that was adopted. Just some, you know, restricting amount of street truck parking, stuff like that. But we are definitely involved in that. We're definitely coordinating with the key players and stakeholders in the truck management plan as well. So we're definitely not ignoring that. Yeah, you can move on, Tyler. Cool. So to date, we've administered online outreach. That's basically what we've done. Obviously, we're in the pandemic right now. That's the best thing that we can do. And so far, it included advertising, our interactive website, our survey as part of that, through social media, different social media platforms, other platforms like Nextdoor. So that's what we've been doing, and I'm sure you all have seen. If not, the website link is right here above. You can check it out after the meeting if you'd like and navigate through. It'll be the same link that we use throughout all the 3 different phases that I shared with you in the beginning. Next slide, Tyler. So from the outreach that we've done through the website and through just the social media advertisement and stuff like that, we received just over 1,400 surveys in the time that we put it out not too long ago. That's pretty impressive. Maybe people are just home online or something like that. But however, what we saw so far is that of the 1,400 surveys, only 186 were from West Oakland. And, you know, we further looked at it, and majority were homeowners versus renters as well. So that's something we looked into. Next slide, Tyler. And you can see the discrepancies, you know, just immediately between folks that have taken the survey and the, you know, only 13% of that is in West Oakland. But further, you know, breaking it down, we see that, you know, of the census tracts in West Oakland, about like 40% or more are Black and African American. Although, you know, of it's just underrepresented. That population is underrepresented in the actual survey respondents themselves so far. And so we know and we see that we're not reaching all the population, all Oaklanders. We know we're not able to reach disadvantaged communities, we're people of color. And so we knew that going into it, but just we wanted to do a quick disparity analysis on what we have so far. And that's pretty much why the main reason we decide to partner with community-based organizations, so that we can run more focused and you know, work with trusted community partners to collaborate with community members that the city you know, traditionally might not be able to reach. And so that's why we're taking the extra time to focus on West Oakland, and thus, this orientation meeting to educate and get people up to speed that might not be familiar with the orientation process, or sorry, the planning process, really. Next slide, please. Oh, and I forgot to mention too that we looked at bus riders as well. And so the census tracts of bus riders in West Oakland is a lot higher than bus riders that actually responded to the survey. So, some examples of groups that aren't being represented. Like Brian said, we'll be getting into focus groups later on, with the trucking community, with folks in affordable housing, with the people with disabilities population. And so those are some examples of focus groups that we'll get into and having, deeper conversations with. Next slide. Oh, all right. So that concludes the just the technical where we are so far, and I'll hand it back to Brian to lead the dialogue.
Thank you, Hank and Tyler. One thing I want to emphasize is in our other research we've done on our political engagement in West Oakland is reflective of this same data. Folks over around the lake respond to things, they go out and vote, they make their voices heard. And you can ask our councilwoman who really elects our city council member. It's folks over there who vote. Folks over here in on the west side, we don't make our voices heard. And so this is a very important opportunity to begin to change that. As you saw in that data, we're just, we're barely registering on the survey data. So if you have, it's particularly important if you're here representing a group of some kind, any kind of group affiliation, a business group, a resident group, a neighborhood. Be sure you encourage your friends and neighbors and your business associates to go to the link and take the survey, because we really need to, quadruple the responses that are coming out of our neighborhoods. So what we really wanted to do here, first off, we have a kind of a core question for you, but before I dive into that, are there any questions about clarification from the slides you saw, what that data means and why it's important to the redesign of the boulevard, anything like that that folks want to ask? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
I have a question, and I appreciate this process and how community oriented all of this is. I guess it's around things that seem like table stakes to me. If there are sections of the street that don't have sidewalks, why does that take 2 years to figure out that we need to put in sidewalks?
I think it's a good question for the OCDOT folks. How do sidewalks get made? Does the city build sidewalks, or does the city have to go find money to build a sidewalk?
Yeah, I can answer that, Brian and Brian. So yeah, you're right. We do have to go find money, but since the Department of Transportation was created, we have a more robust paving team, but they don't only do paving. It's called the Paving and Sidewalk Team. And so they are now able to go after funding, and we are able to prioritize internal funding to go and repair sidewalks and add sidewalks and repair pavement, as you can see in some of the progress we've been making in the city. And so this plan is pointing out that there is a lack of sidewalk in the inventory that you saw, for sure. But luckily, the sidewalk is being filled in with the paving group in their process with the West Grand repaving right now in West Oakland. So luckily, we have that mechanism to deliver that. And so that inventory that you saw will be filled in shortly, if it hasn't already been updated now. So I don't know if that answers your full question, Brian.
I mean, what I think I hear you saying is OCDOT is aware now and trying to address it.
Yes, we have a mechanism to do so now. So hopefully it won't take us long. And also we are more responsive and we have a 311 to respond to that, some of those requests and stuff.
Thank
It's
you.
not perfect, but we have something that is able to get us to where we can set up, more streamlined processes.
Mm-hmm. So Hank, correct me if I'm wrong. The city is at this moment trying to just fill out the existing inventory of sidewalks and get sidewalks where they belong. But this planning exercise might change the way those sidewalks look or expand their proportions or do any number of things to those sidewalks. Even if they're put in next month, they might get wider, they might change. Is that right? What this process how it would influence an issue like that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks to you, Brian, for bringing up that point. And yeah, so planning processes are separate, but also they guide projects. However, like I said, the paving plan is putting in this fresh new pavement and also sidewalk and curb ramp update right now. Yes, it's going in now, but what we're envisioning in this plan is more visionary, right? And if folks basically say that they want wider sidewalks, for their businesses or wider sidewalks for more gathering space and just having wider sidewalks in general, to maybe people think that would, be a better environment for their neighborhood. Yeah, we would consider that and obviously go through the cost estimate and obviously have to, it would be in the planning process, or it would be guiding the city on where to prioritize and how to get funding to do that. Yeah, so there is the ability to change.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. It is an important question because sometimes we see things done and then 2 years later you wonder why are they tearing up that thing they just built. I think that's where sometimes trying to get the community up to nominal, which is everybody's got a sidewalk, everybody's, there's a ramp where ramps are necessary, is a different process than designing the optimal that we might want to see. And so we might see them put in new sidewalks along Grand Avenue, and then 3 or 4 years from now, if they get money for this plan, we might see them take them out and make better sidewalks or wider ones. So I find that sometimes frustrating as a citizen, wondering why are we, redoing the same work, but that's how the process sometimes works. So what we want to work on here is what is that future vision for this corridor? Because also the design of the corridor will influence how land is used. It will influence the kind of businesses and housing and things that happen on the other side of the sidewalk, right? So this is very important in that regard. Any other clarifying questions from folks? And then I have a key question for you. Looks like nobody's jumping out. So core question on this call, and we're going to continue to ask similar questions in the focus groups. And I'm going to mention focus groups. We have a few, sort of demographic sectors that we think we need to reach out to. If you have a bunch of folks and you'd like to have a focus group with them that sort of represent something, a neighborhood association, business group, or something like that, let us know, and we will, we will target a special meeting to get your, your specialized perspective on this process. So be sure to reach out. I think we're providing a way. I think that for the time being, Hank is the primary contact. And then if there's something you want passed through to one of us, you can do that. And some of you know who Miss Margaret and I are. And so there should be plenty of ways to reach us. Miss Margaret's reminding me that when you speak, please give us your name and your affiliation if you have one. And that might be as simple as I'm a resident of such and such a street. I live, 3 blocks from Grand Avenue. Let us know something about your interest here. So one question is, what does Grand Avenue mean to you? How do you use it? I mean, I'll model that by saying I typically use Grand Avenue to get from, I live over by the BART station on 7th Street. I go up and cross town on Grand Avenue. I go to the park to do Tai Chi. I use it to get to the other side of town. I go up Grand and cut off on West and go to things up that direction. But I don't live along the corridor. I don't think I've ever walked along Grand Avenue. So I have a different perspective on it, right? How I use it is not the way some of you might use it. So what does Grand Avenue mean to you? You can raise your hand physically, or you can raise it in the chat. Unmute yourself. Go ahead, Joe. You have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Well, I currently own the property on West Grand Avenue between Adeline and Magnolia. It used to be the Ford Graphics building. But I've actually, and I have a business, wine storage business, the warehouse business. But I've been in business for 31 years on West Grand Avenue. My first location was in the Beacons building, now the whatever StoreQuest or Storage Pro building. Then I was in Filbert Street, the old ice cream factory that's now the 300 or so units that are built there, the Ice House buildings. And now, having moved my facility twice, I bought this building here. So I've been living on West Grand Avenue for 30 years, doing business here. I actually live in Temescal near 42nd and Telegraph. So I have a 2.1 mile commute every day. And sometimes I drive, sometimes I bicycle, I've even walked. So more than half of my adult life has been spent on West Grand Avenue, doing business here. And I certainly have a lot to say about what I want to see on this street. I've actually called Michael Ford and Mr. Russo and a bunch of people from the Department of Transportation to share my ideas. Unfortunately, I've never gotten a phone call back from anybody, which is a little bit frustrating. And I'm not sure if it's because they're busy or they didn't get my messages, or I'm on a list of people to not call back. It's a little bit frustrating, frankly. But I've got a lot of good ideas on how to develop the street in a way that works. Now's probably not the time to share those ideas, but I just want to say that I've been yearning for the opportunity to provide input to the process. So I'd love to be contacted by somebody who is willing to hear what I have to say, because so far nobody has been.
Thanks, Joe. I think that's exactly the kind of answer we're looking for at this point in the process. You've got a vested interest and you've got ideas, and that's what we're trying to get to. I'm sure you'll hear from somebody now. And somewhere in this process, I think we will be in that mode of gathering those specific ideas people have, the creative mode of what should Grand Avenue look like to serve the needs of the people who live there. Anybody else?
We have 2 folks in line. We have Sherry and then Zuhair.
Thank you, Annie. Sherry?
Yes, hi. So I'm the executive director of the nonprofit, the Koreatown Northgate District. And so West Grand runs, it's only a piece of our geographic boundaries. I've been there for 10 years. So I do use West Grand walking and driving. I'm just curious, they put a no left turn on West Grand, and I'm wondering if that's temporary because of the construction of the new hotel that's going up, because it seems counterproductive being that it's a main street. So that was just a question I had.
Is that at Telegraph Avenue?
Telegraph and West Grand, yeah.
Okay.
So now you have to go down because there's a one-way street below that. If you want to get over to Broadway, you have to go all the way down to 21st Street by the Paramount to turn left to get over to Broadway.
Staff folks, any thoughts on that question? Is that a permanent thing, or is that just part of a ongoing traffic design?
Hey, Sherry. Can you repeat that? So you're saying when you're traveling southbound on Telegraph and when you get to Grand, there is now a left turn restriction?
Yes, there's no left turn at all on West Grand, which
Okay.
it's a big deal.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one. And you're saying that it is more recent?
Yeah, I would say in the last 6 months.
Okay.
It could be because of the construction at the corner for the Moxie Hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, Sherry, let me look into that and I'll get back to you. How about that?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then while I have my mic unmuted, Joe, thanks for sharing. You are on my list to get back. Trust me. I apologize. It's been taking me so long. I've been really busy, but I'm getting back to you. And I know we spoke before, and I know you're very excited to share all your and you shared some of your your thoughts with me already about Grant. So I look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, I didn't mean to call you. I didn't call you out. I called the other guys that aren't here out. But
No, I got you.
glad to know that I'm on your list. Thanks.
Exactly. And also, if we ever do, not ever, we will have focus groups. And since you represent businesses and also, property owners, it'd be important to hear the business side of it as well in the focus group. So we would appreciate you there as well.
Bill, Joe, is your business there by O2 Aggregate? Or are they down the way?
I don't know where they are.
Oh, okay.
Adeline and West Grand.
Oh, Adeline and West Grand. Oh, they're on Magnolia, just a block off of West Grand, I think so.
Yeah, off of Union, I think. That's the concrete people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is an artisans group, an artisan.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, they're block away. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to tell us how you use West Grand Avenue, what it means to you, or what it doesn't mean to you?
So we have Zuhair, Brian, and then Jimmy after that.
Okay.
And sorry if I butcher your name.
That's all good. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm actually a community member. I live on 24th and Chestnut. I grew up in the community, West Grand. Took the bus to school, walked to my cousin's house, friend's house, all that. I'm just here to get the perspective from a community member, you feel me? And I'm excited to give my thoughts and all that.
Very good. So you're a real user of Grand Avenue, pedestrian, bicycling, bus rider, all that stuff then. Huh?
Every day.
All right. Well, that's an important voice. And I think the next was David.
Brian.
Hi.
Oh, Brian.
Oh,
Brian's up and then David.
Go ahead, David.
Should I go ahead? Yes. So I live in Adams Point, and I'm with the cycling group. We go down Grand Avenue from Telegraph Avenue to Mandela. But I just want to confirm that the stretch from Telegraph to Mandela, the focus group is spot on. It's as high stress as can be. The traffic is as bad, is horrible, and an element of the traffic is particularly dangerous, making it a very bad situation. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it's a difficult, even driving, it's a difficult space because some of those intersections that jog and people don't know what lane they're supposed to get in. I've been cut off many times along that strip. So it must be hard on bicycle riders. And Brian, I think, was next.
Yep. Thank you. My name is Brian Pelsel. I am a resident of West Oakland. I live on Grand Avenue, so I am on Grand Avenue every single day. I walk it, I drive it, I take the bus. I think, what else can I add? I hope this process is fruitful, and I hope that it leads to something. And I think that like leading to something that actually happens is like the most important thing. That if you look at the condition of the street currently, it's so poor that I would have to imagine there's many people who can't even see that that can't believe that the city will invest in it because it is in such poor condition compared to other portions of Grand Avenue.
Thanks, Brian. It's a good perspective. I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about it? And you filled that space in for us. Thank you. Any other hands up, Annie?
Yes, Jimmy is the last one with their hand up.
Okay.
Hi, Jimmy O'Day, resident. I live 24th and Myrtle. For me, yeah, West Grand is, I'd say 90% of the time I leave the house, I'm using West Grand, mostly as a pedestrian or cyclist. We're working in downtown Oakland and now working from home, but use it to get to work by bike, going for walks in the neighborhood. Every walk really starts on the West Grand area, going over to the park or the lake, going over to San Francisco. And I guess, you know, coming back from San Francisco and over into Oakland, like West Grand is the gateway to the city. And I think, as everybody recognizes right now, it's not, it doesn't reflect the strength of the community over here, and what we really are. So I'm really happy that this process is going on and there's opportunity for public input.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've always felt that, you know, Grand Avenue is the only at-grade entrance to the city of Oakland, and it doesn't always look that great. Joe, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and based on what this fellow just said is, and this is kind of what I've been saying to people is, and it sounds like wordplay or a triple entendre, but it's called Grand Avenue. And as you get off the Bay Bridge, it's the entrance to Oakland. So it's the grand entrance to Oakland. And so what I'm envisioning is a grand entrance to Oakland on Grand with a sign going across it in a beautiful boulevard. And that, because first impressions really are the best. And if we can make a good impression as people come across Mandela, at least, then that sort of sets a tone psychologically and emotionally for entering the city.
I would agree with you. I think you're absolutely right on. Anybody else? I think Lorenzo left, but he did say in the chat that it's where he lives his life. It's where I live my life day to day. I walk up and down the street at least twice a day. Anyone else out there? Alvina? Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, well, my family's been here since 1942 in West Oakland on Magnolia. And the only thing that a couple of things that I want is not from West Grand to look like Telegraph with all those white things on it. That's ugly. It is. And I also want to know if the turn up there on Telegraph is permanent or temporary.
Okay. I think we'll have a lot of opportunities here. I mean, certainly that question needs to be answered, but I think it raises an issue of where do you think public safety would be better served for pedestrians and cyclists and scooter riders and bus riders trying to get to the bus if we wound up with a central island thing like they have out in International. It's like, where do maybe we need to have no left turns, or maybe we need to restrict traffic to some degree. These are all going to be important questions that those of you who live along the boulevard think about and have an opportunity to share, because it really is there's a big public safety element here. Annie?
Jennifer would like to speak.
Jennifer, please unmic yourself.
Hi, thank you. First, I'd like to say that I really appreciate that this whole planning process is going on and that all of the data has been collected and all of this analysis has been presented for us. And I'm a resident of the Adams Point area. I'm a bicyclist, although not a big and strong one, so I'm a fearful bicyclist. I use the Grand Avenue retail strips heavily by foot, and I would like to once again use the stretch of West Grand that goes toward the bay for mostly recreational bicycling. But there are also times when there have been community events in West Oakland that I thought, oh, it would be great if we could just bicycle over there because the distance is great. It's you know, just fun. But I felt like the danger of being on parts of West Grand, the uneven pavement, the proximity to trucks that I don't think can see me. It's really held back, I think, probably a lot of people who would use it more by bike to get around the city. And also I wanted to add that primarily because of the truck traffic, which I'm not knocking it, trucks have got to go somewhere, but with truck traffic, especially that's going a bit fast, you get a lot of stuff falling out into the roadway and ending up in what's now the bike riding path. And it's important to me that the city also has built into this plan some kind of regular maintenance. You know, someone, I hope that this budget includes adding a person who can spend the day cleaning up stuff that flies off the trucks. Or
I think that's a very good point. You know, I haven't ridden a bicycle in Oakland much. I used to ride where I lived down south, but it is definitely the case that the place you're trying to ride your bike with your little tiny tires is the place that's full of rocks and glass and pieces of old metal, and everything that falls off anybody's car or vehicle winds up getting kicked to the curb. And so street sweeping and maintenance along that space is incredibly important if it's going to be an attractive place for bikers and pedestrians. I see Shirley has her hand up. Jennifer asked to speak. She can't raise her hand. So let's.
Jennifer already spoke. Miss Margaret was next, and then Shirley.
Okay, Miss Margaret, are you here? There you are. Miss Margaret, you'll need to unmute yourself.
I'm having technical problems with my computer.
Well, we hear
so I had
you.
to go on my cell phone.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to report that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. So then next was who?
Oh, Shirley.
Shirley, okay.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Shirley. I'm a resident of West Oakland on Filbert and near Filbert and Grand. And I'm a daily user of Grand Avenue. I'm a pedestrian, I'm a cyclist, and I take the bus, the NL into downtown Oakland sometimes. So, and I walk my dog along Grand Avenue as well. And the one thing that I would like to note is that, you know, in addition to debris and trash on the street, there's also debris on the sidewalks as well. And I've noticed that there's a lack of trash receptacles along the section of Grand. So I'd just like to note that, and you know, regular emptying of those receptacles if they are if there are additional trash cans would be important as well.
I think it's an important question for us all to continue to think about, and it's not for us to try to figure out. Really, it's really for the city to explain to us, if we get the federal transportation money, or if we get the state money, or whatever it takes to rebuild and make this into a beautiful boulevard, does the city have the money to maintain it? Is our tax revenues going up? Are things getting better? Because we assume part of the reason that it is ill-maintained is because there isn't money to do that. So do you guys want to, is there anything that you want to say at this moment about that process, or?
No, I think you have it spot on, and that's the issue. And political climate has a lot to do with it as well, and that basically prioritizes where money goes for us in the different departments and us in the different teams within those departments. And so, yeah, all of that has a great deal. And I just wanted to say to Jennifer's point about debris and maintenance and all of that, the beauty of like a planning process itself is not just coming up with physical designs, but also recommending programmatic and policies, things that can be folded into those documents as well. And so we want to capture all these things too. So not just like, oh, this is where we want this, and this is where we want a banner over Grand, this is how we want the street, but also like, how do we want to use the street? What do you want to program? What do you want to see? It goes beyond just the physical space as well.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for that.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think we have to be thinking, and I'm going to editorialize a little bit or offer perspective here, step out of my role as supposedly neutral facilitator. We have to be thinking about whether our community has been getting its fair share of city funding. The area around the lake has received tens and tens of millions of dollars, through a special bond issue almost 20 years ago, and has been really revitalized to make it attractive and accessible and pleasant. And I think we have to be asking our city council member and our city administration and our mayor, when is it West Oakland's turn? And so I really encourage all of you to speak, to keep this in your mind, and to speak about it wherever you can, and to speak about it in this process. And in a few minutes, we're going to tell you what's next and how this process evolves. But I believe anyone who's lived here for a while knows that West Oakland probably has not gotten its fair share of city funding for all of these issues. So that's my editorializing for the moment. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak and would like to say something? I'm not sure we've heard from the trucking community who are over there. I saw the data that said only about 2.4% of the traffic through the intersection at Grand and Mandela is heavy duty trucking, but that's 2.4%, and there is a community of truckers in the Poplar Street area that probably need to be recognized. I don't know if Bill's out there, if we're just seeing his smiling face, if he has anything to say about that.
We also have one person who has their hand up. Zuhair would like to speak again when there's a moment.
Oh, okay. Well, until we hear from Bill and Zuhair, go ahead.
Hi. You actually have two truckers here.
Ah.
So I know I've been listening to you guys talk about West Grand and what it means to everybody. We actually use West Grand less and less these days just because we're on this side of the Army base. But there are some truckers that are still on just before Mandela to the overpass. We have a lot of trucking companies there that utilize that street. It is a dangerous intersection. I'm really surprised. I know that this project goes up to Mandela Parkway. My question was, is it coming up the ramp, or is that Caltrans doing the planning? Because I think from Mandela up to the ramp to the Bay Bridge is the one that really needs to be paid attention to. I actually walk West Grand when I go to City Hall, or I get dropped off at a meeting at City Hall. I'll walk back from City Hall all the way back through West Grand to get to my office on the Army base. It's interesting. It's evolving. I like the mixture of the commercial plus the residential, but we need to realize that we're all in this together, and we've got to make it work for all of us. Not to put bicycle lanes and forget about the trucks, or put truck lanes and carpool lanes and forget about the bicyclists. So the other thing that I kept thinking about is when they were talking about the bike path to the Bay Bridge, they always said that the touchdown would be on Mandela. Whatever happened to that? That was a $30 million project that was supposed to take a bike path. Instead of being on West Grand, it would be from Mandela all the way to the Bay Bridge.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I can try to answer some of that for you. Your question with, is this project handling or addressing anything west of Mandela? That is a no for this project, but we are coordinating heavily with MTC, the regional planning body. They got a project on the Caltrans right away. That's the one that you're referring to. So they're bringing improvements. They have some proposed improvements to extend that HOV lane that they put in about, I think, a year ago or 2 years ago now, off the bridge. And so they're extending that back a little bit to Maritime, I think. And so as part of that extension, they're adding a multi-use path where people can walk, people can bike, connecting Mandela to Maritime, where the existing paths are to get out to the port and out to the bridge landing. So that's one project that they're proposing. And then the other project you're talking about, it's called the Link project, which is also MTC. And I'm not too sure what happened with that one. A few years ago, it was dropped. I think Caltrans was a little wary of that one. And so they kind of ignored it to a point where it lost interest, but it came back recently. And so that is a way longer term project that will basically create like an elevated path, like an elevated multi-use path, basically at the grade of, I think, one of the bridges, one of the Caltrans bridges, so that you're not actually crossing any railroad tracks. You're actually not crossing any of the streets at the port or the Army base. So you're kind of elevated over that, and then it touches down at Mandela, which also connects with the new Gateway Park and all of that stuff out at the port right now. So that's what I know. But we're coordinating with all of them. So definitely talking about the linkage and all of that is part of the conversation for sure.
All right, so if we want to go back to Zuhair, and then Sherry has written something in the chat, but she may also want to say something.
Hi, yeah, I know you mentioned focus groups earlier. I just had a question. Like, are we tapping into are you guys tapping into like the community members who have been there for like, all their life, community members like Miss Womack, people who have stayed in this house, their family stayed in this house, people who grew up in these buildings right across the street, I just wanted to know if like we tapping into that demographic.
Yes, thank you for raising that question. We are definitely interested in tapping into that demographic of folks who've been here a long time. One of the things we might need some help in, from some of you that are here that are in that group, is to bring together some of your other longtime resident neighbors. We're happy to host a meeting, but it's some ways it's easier to reach the business community because they may be organized in a group, and it's easier to reach the truckers because they have some organization. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how to get, 10 or 12 or 15 residents together because we don't really have groups. If you have a neighborhood association that we can contact and work with, that would be great. If you would like to just bring together some of your neighbors that you know that are your longtime resident neighbors, we would be happy to work with any group that folks can help us put together. The city's, sending out thousands of notices about this process. All of us are posting it to our email lists. But sometimes it takes a neighbor to say, hey, this is important and we should all get together and have this come to this meeting, right? So we welcome any assistance you can give us in bringing together the important voices. So I appreciate that, Zuhar. And if you've got any thoughts on how we can do that, please let us know.
Most definitely. I'm personally, I'm finna tap in with, like, my cousins, neighbors, friends, all that, trying to spread the word. But yeah, so do I just like bring them to the next meeting, or how would that work?
That's an opportunity, but we could also, we'd be happy to do a meeting with a group. If you've got, if you've got 10 or 12 people, we're happy to hold a meeting with 10 or 12 people. And if it's folks who, you have a kind of special interest because you've lived here all your lives and you use these streets, in your daily life. So we're happy to do a small focus group with you and your cousins and your neighbors. Let us know how you'd like to do that. I think Hank got his hand up too, had some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Zuhair, that's a great point. And it's not just this planning process itself, but it's like everything through the city, throughout the city. And it's something that personally I'm trying to figure out how to do better, because historically, like, the city is not good at that. Like you saw that, I don't know if you were able to see the data from just the surveys that we have so far and how low it is of a participation rate in West Oakland. And that's just because it's not geared towards that population, and it's a population that we want to hear from and focus and have a voice in, in the decision-making process, because you have been here for generations, and you basically created this place. And so trying to figure out a way to reach that population. So I'd be happy for you to, for us to share contact information, and we can have a separate conversation. But like Brian said, we would definitely love to have a focus group with your neighbors and cousins, or just folks that have been in the community for generations.
So Zuhar and Alvina, can we use you two as sort of contacts for the moment? And you're both longtime residents. Can we reach out to you and talk about how we can reach your neighbors?
Most definitely.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll be reaching out to you. Thank you. Let's see. We're coming up on 7:30. We don't want to belabor this, and folks maybe want to get on with their evening.
Yeah, I think Sherry had her hand up real quick.
Okay,
We had Sherry, Walter, and Miss Margaret all had their hands up.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. I put it in the chat, but I just wanted to point out that there's a section on West Grand that was reported back in April of 2018 where it's impassable by a wheelchair. And I've gone back and forth with the city about repairing it. They tried to say that this is not a official city tree, and that they're trying to put it onto the property owner to repair the sidewalk. But is it a coincidence that it's the same species and trees that are down the medium of West Grand and further up on West Grand? So I think it's possible that it is a city planted tree that just maybe didn't get on their official list. But in the meantime, there's no resolution and it's impassable by a wheelchair. So I just wanted to bring that up. And there's a link to the 311 complaint that has a photo of the sidewalk.
Thank you, Sherry. I think these are, when we get down into the nitty gritty, sometimes these are the real issues, right? Who owns the tree? Well, how come we can't get the sidewalk fixed? That kind of stuff is important. And one thing I would ask the city folks is, we have to, as we go through this process, we have to be looking at a process that is about getting to yes, right? It's about getting to solutions and not about figuring out that it's not my job and or that someone else's responsibility. So I think it's going to be important that we have the right people in the room as this process goes on, and that those people are ready to use their authority to make this community better. We don't want a 5-year planning process that takes 10 years to raise money, and we still have a broken sidewalk because nobody can agree on who owns a tree. So thank you, Sherry, for that. We've got it documented now. It's recorded for posterity. Let's see, then we had Walter.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up really quick in the wrap up section as far as like the outreach, like Zohair was mentioning. He actually applied to be one of the student artists. So we're looking forward to connect. I'm looking forward to connecting with him after this meeting to talk further about that approach. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know that he's going to be much more of a part in this process. So we're really excited. I'm excited that he was able to jump on tonight, but also just furthering discussion in the future with expressing himself as a member of the community through his art form, but also helping with the planning process as well and bringing in different members of the community.
Great, thank you. And I think Annie said earlier, you're going to see some things along Grand Avenue, fence banners and various things that are interactive, that are inviting you to comment, to write on it, paint something, draw something, put your comments right on the wall. And so encourage folks, especially those who are pedestrians, we encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities to share your thoughts. It's one of the more creative ways we're trying to think of to have this all work out. Miss Margaret, I think your hand was up.
Yes, I just want to make sure by West Oakland Environmental Indicators are involved in this project. We want to reflect what the community needs, wants, not necessarily desires, but just make sure that whatever is happening in this project, we're really reflecting what you're asking about.
Yes, thank you. This is a community-centric process, and the city has fully bought into that. And so that's why we have our organization, Ms. Margaret and I, and our team, Ebaltzy and the Black Film Guild are all here because the city wants this to be about the community's vision. And so don't take advantage of it in all the possible ways. So we are getting down to the end of this thing. I think I want to let Hank do this wrap up. I've talked a lot, but I think Hank knows what they want to do next. So you want to take this, Hank?
Yeah, sure. I'll wrap it up. Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for your time on this evening to join us on this orientation meeting. There'll be further opportunities like we were talking about focus groups. And so it seems like a lot of you all are heavily involved in the community. And so I look forward to working with you all again in any capacity, really. And so you can stay tuned on the project website. I know it might be a little confusing because we got the bit.ly link. That's like the more interactive website that we use, just the main one that we point people to. But then in there, it also links people to the longer link just below that. And that one belongs to the city. And so we technically have to have a city website for accessibility reasons. And so either way, we'll be sharing information through there. This presentation slide will be shared early next week. on the website. Other resources, like we said, glossary of terms, any previous planning, documents, a list of those will be on there as well. And then West Oakland Environmental Indicator Project will be holding focus groups. So similar sort of meeting like this, but with focus groups and where we will dive further into the plan itself. And then Ibalsi will take it to the street with some engagement, some creative engagement. And then, as you heard, Walter shared his youth art project that will be going on concurrently as well. And so, if anybody
And
else
Hank, excuse me, but Hank, I think that also if the audience, the community has any agenda items or research that they would like to have more clarification with, they should submit that.
Exactly. And then also, I'll be Tyler and I will be sending out a sort of like a recap of all of this with all the documents, and then feel free to reach out to us via email as well following this meeting. It's not the last time.
Not the last time. Annie or Walter, any last thoughts on any clarifications or thoughts on what you really want to achieve with your part of this process?
Sure. Really quickly, I could just, unless you wanted to go first, Annie.
Go ahead, Walter.
Okay. Just really quickly, I'm really excited about this this project as far as the artistic component. I think that we're going to get a lot of really great candidates from West Oakland who are going to kind of display how they feel about their community through their specific art form, whether it be graffiti art, videography, spoken word.
Mm-hmm. So the age group for that is what, 18 to 25?
Yeah, so 18 to 26. I'm sorry?
No, Miss Margaret was off mic. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So yeah, it's 18 to 26, and there's still space available. So if anyone here happens to know a member of the youth community in West Oakland who is an artist who would like to participate, please just let them email me, walter@blackfilmguild.com, or they can just follow the link on the flyer.
Yeah, let's get our young people involved in this and get their artistic muscles going. Annie, any final thoughts on what you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so we're trying to take some of this information, out of the Zoom and into the street. So this kind of blue sign here is just an example of what that might look like, a giant chalkboard. We've done this in other parts of West Oakland with questions. So if anybody here knows or is a property owner along West Grand, we already have one location at West Grand and Brush, but we're looking for one or two more. This one, is an idea of a location. Would be willing to host a board on their chain link fence for a couple of months. Please have them get in touch with us. We would love to do one maybe in the middle of the corridor and then one at the end. And also we're looking to work with local artists to help us create some social media outreach. So if you know anyone who is a visual artist or a digital artist who would take some of the information that we're talking about in this meeting and bring that out to the street in a visual way, we're looking to hire folks to support with that. And we want to keep that money in the community the most we can. So pass on the word. And thanks so much.
Very good. So Joe, maybe you've got a piece of chain link fence you want to engage in the process. So get in touch and let them know. We want to make go ahead.
Yeah, fence right now, but I'm working on an idea for how I want to border my property. So I'll come up with some ideas for that, because right now it's just wide open, which is great if you're a graffiti criminal. Have at it. Every month I get out with my commercial sprayer and use 10 gallons of paint and cover it up, and then within 3 days it's covered again. But I'm working on a fence, and when I get one, I'll maybe even talk to Walter about something artistic there.
It sounds good. That sounds great. We don't want to have the the engagement piece just all at one place or the other. It's a long strip. It's I don't know how many blocks. So we want to try to engage all the parts of the boulevard. So I'm going to thank all of you. I think this has been a terrific meeting. I think we've had great exchanges. I think everyone spoke at least once, and it's just the beginning. We'll be reaching out to you again. We'll be looking to do these smaller focused groups where, a group of folks with common interests can have a deeper discussion. And so keep your eye out, keep your eye on your emails, and we'll be back with you. Team, any last words?
Oh, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
All right. Everybody have a pleasant evening and a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.